Welcome to Talking Education from the Varkey Foundation. By entering conversations like this, you are helping to raise teachers' voices and give every child a quality education. Please watch, click, subscribe, and start talking education. Our vision is quality education for every child, through work in the classroom to the highest halls of government. This new decade brings the opportunity to release the vital conversations usually confined to conference halls to the 2.65 billion people that use social media. Education debates aren't the preserve of academics. Everybody deserves to be part of them. Together, we have an opportunity to advance and bring a diverse audience into our mission as we discuss education's problems, collaborate on their solutions, and most importantly, show the incredible work of those on the front line of education. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's discussion. Has EdTech finally come of age in COVID-19? The COVID-19 pandemic has focused minds on the relationship between education and digital technology. Around the world, online learning has helped many students to keep learning during lockdown. But the crisis has also taught us about the limits of today's EdTech. The pandemic has exposed a stark digital divide between the school systems with the resources to deliver on EdTech and those without. And even remote learning at its very best has not been able to replace the interpersonal relationships that are so critical to education. Over the last few months, I've heard from so many teachers, students, and parents about how much they've missed face-to-face learning in the real world. So what's the role of technology in education? Will physical schools be replaced by online technologies, rather like the automobile replaced the horse and cart? Or will better tech enhance what's already there? My name is Dr. Saima Rana, and I am the Chief Education Ambassador at the Varkey Foundation. With me today are a panel of 4 colleagues who I hope can shed some light on these questions. I'd like to welcome Dr. Jamie Frost, teacher, Tiffin School and creator of DrFrostMaths.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome. Ms. Carolina Giménez, EdTech Director, Varkey Foundation, and co-founder of Comunidad Athena. Welcome, Carolina.
Nice to be here.
Welcome. And Professor John Kim, Senior Lecturer of Business Administration, Harvard Business School.
Good afternoon. It's very nice to be with you.
Good afternoon. Welcome. So if our audience have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the live chat and we will answer them as soon as we can. So Carolina, can I start with you, please? How has the COVID-19 pandemic changed the way we think about technology and education?
Well, that's a good question for starters. Well, I think that COVID-19 has changed a lot what we think about education and technology. I think it helps to lower the level of skepticism regarding the use of technology. And I can say this because I've been witnessing this for the last 5 months when we launched Comunidad Athena, or in English, Athena Community, which is a social network for teachers that have the objective to create a collaborative learning community among teachers in LATAM. And this is a place where they can share their best practices, take inspiration from peers, access to cutting-edge MOOCs, and create teaching initiatives together. We are so happy because Comunidad Athena, it is really a place where teachers can learn by doing. And in order to do that, they need to really engage deeply with technology, step by step. And we are doing this journey together with them. And we are happy to share that we have more than 10,000 teachers enrolled to the community so far. And this community it is like, you can imagine an educational Pinterest, a Pinterest for education. It is a place where they can really share their best practices, what they are doing, and it is really working for them. And other teachers can take these best practices and implement them among their students, among their schools, and then that is why we believe that they are really learning from each other together, and of course to do that they have to use a lot of these digital tools that we are in a way going together in this journey of how to use in a meaningful and significant way in order for them to students learn more and better. And also what I would like to add is that Comunidad Athena, it's like a LinkedIn of teachers, because when you get there, you can add like your profile, your biography, what subjects you are interested in, and other teachers can look for you and get in contact, get in touch. And this is really, really happening, and they are creating these amazing collaborative initiatives together. Also, what we discovered that promoting an atmosphere of trust and humanity, empathy, warmness among teachers is essential to unlock the potential of technology in education. And that is exactly what we are doing in Comunidad Atenea. We are creating this warm environment among teachers to promote the meaningful and creative use of digital tools with their students.
Thank you so much, Carolina. It's really interesting that you talk about skepticism, and you talk about teachers believing in the power and unlocking the potential of technology to really support, if you like, a community of teachers getting together. And it's incredibly impressive that you have over 10,000 teachers in your community, which is fantastic. And so, you know, we talk about teachers in different locations and being able to really take advantage and make the most of technological innovations within their educational context. So Dr. Frost, can you talk a little bit about teachers having, you know, I think that teachers have having or not having adequate training in how to use technology in their instruction, and how can we equip better our teaching workforce with the skills they need to use the best of what EdTech has to offer today?
Sure. Well, I have a lot of experience with this because I was actually supposed to do a speaking tour for teachers, both in the UK and internationally as well. So I had a variety of different Asian gigs, for example, and that all got completely wiped out because of the lockdown. And so obviously I had to find some kind of technological means to be able to do these training events whilst obviously not having that face-to-face presence. And I use Zoom, for example, and it's been so successful that I'm not going to go back to face-to-face training again. Because last year, for example, the most I had in any teacher training event, and this is all training to do with my own technology and stuff, and how we can use that technology in schools. The most I ever had was about 200, whereas I had some recent Zoom events, and over the 3 weeks I had about 2,500 different maths teachers. So being able to use that technology has so many advantages, and just to think some of those advantages, you've got the fact that the event can be recorded and people can watch it at their own luxury later without having to be at the event face to face. You've got the costs involved because I would have to charge, just even though I didn't receive payment myself, there was a small charge just for the kind of travel expenses, etc. So there's very little in terms of costs involved, and just a greater convenience. I think that the fact there was such high attendance is that teachers didn't have to get a cover teacher at their own school so they can attend this event. They didn't have to travel to the event. They could just do it from their home just after school. And it just works so much better. Like I wouldn't go back to how it was before just because it was so successful. And I really do think that is the way forward in terms of teacher training, that actually you can do all the things you could do face to face. You can still have that dialogue with teachers. There was like half an hour at the end for teachers to ask questions, and they use the Zoom chat in order to ask me questions throughout the actual training session. And I think that's one area where actually technology can pretty much completely replace what you would be doing face to face.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frost. And I think that it's really interesting how you've been able to once again access so many teachers as a result of the technological setup that you have created for yourself, which is fantastic. But I want to go back to something that Carolina said about skepticism, because when we look at technology, sometimes the best strategy is to say to people that, we're limiting or we're completely shutting off access to the way things were so that you could quickly move into the new way of doing things things through technological advancement. And do you think almost, Carolina, if I can come back to you on this, do you think almost we've been fast-tracked as teachers in being upskilled in the use of technology? Because suddenly in teacher training, when you see teachers that are incredibly experienced who may feel that actually I'm not really tech savvy, and I used to hear that a lot as a principal, I'm not really tech savvy, I'm not really that good with technology, I don't really use technology, and suddenly a global pandemic pushed us right into the arms of technology, and we had no other choice. Carolina, what do you think about that?
Well, the thing is that as you mentioned, as this pandemic really forced us to use technology, as teachers there are amazing teachers that are really using technology. They start like losing their fear, or trying to like doing these new things little by little, step by step. This is like what I've been seeing is the thing that I want to say is that as they start doing this by force at the beginning, like they are starting like falling in love with the little things about technology, and they are like understanding that technology could give you like an amazing range of possibilities. What can an amazing teacher do with a really powerful digital tool? Would do really magic in classroom. So I think that this COVID-19 in a way was good for give them a little push to, okay, go and use technology. Look what it happens, you know? And as they are like earning this trust on using this technology, really amazing things are starting to happen. And this is what I'm seeing with a lot teachers in LATAM.
Thank you so much, Carolina. And you know, you're absolutely right. And the one key thing that you said to me that really, really resonates with me and my experience and my context is you use the phrase, you know, what can a powerful and amazing teacher do with the technology? And that's so important, because if you're a good teacher, you are only going to be great with technology. And I think that's a really poignant sort of, that point is really, really important. That amazing teachers are what we need. Technology in their hands makes them even more amazing, but they were amazing without the technology as well, I would argue. So Professor Kim, could technology replace physical schools and teachers, do you think?
Well, I think if anything else, this pandemic has demonstrated one thing: the importance of schools in our daily lives. Especially in the United States, where parents depend on schools in order to make sure that they can go to work and do all the other things, I think it's actually increased the appreciation that we all have for the role that schools play beyond just math, the 3 R's, the reading, writing, arithmetic. And so in a way, the technology, and I think Dr. Frost was talking about this, the use of Zoom and things of this nature, has democratized access to information and access to learning. But what it also demonstrated was the incredibly important role that teachers and others, educators, play when it comes to things like social, emotional learning. So just to kind of build on Carolina's point, I think what's going to happen is that the role of the teacher is going to change. For a long time, I've been doing this research around if you just add technology to what teachers typically do in the classroom, there's a certain amount of effect. But if you really think about what is it that technology is really good at, for example, conveying a lot of information in a very ready fashion, in a very engaging and personalized fashion. And what is it that technology cannot do, which is things like providing emotional support, mentoring, encouraging students. And I think with the dramatic increase in use of technology because of the pandemic, it is going to heighten the importance of that role among the teachers.
And that's just, it's really interesting what you talk about in terms of the social and emotional aspect of education. And as you say, in the States, you know, quite rightly, what we've recognized is that we need schooling and education for a lot more than just the 3 R's. But we found the same across the globe. You know, people are really wanting that face-to-face, that physical connection. Really, at the beginning, if you remember, everybody was Zooming and on Teams and was just really enjoying it and thinking, this isn't that bad, it's okay. And thank God for this technology. But as time went on, people were just missing people. People were just missing the social, emotional, the cultural, the relationships, and all of those great things that makes us human and builds our character, and all of those expressive arts and all of those creative areas of life, I think. And it's interesting in terms of the enthusiasm for education and technology. It's kind of changed direction, I think. And as you say, it's redefining what teachers are about and what teachers do in schools. So Dr. Frost, do you think enthusiasm for new technologies in education has been misdirected somehow? And has it been led too much by technology experts rather than educational experts like teachers and students? Because if it had, perhaps we would be looking at a different type of technological enhancement in schools today.
I think in terms of what the larger companies produce, like Google, for example, we use a lot of Google technologies in our school. So all the students have Google accounts. We use Google Classroom an awful lot. And in Google's defense, they spend a lot of money working with schools in order to get the best out of the product. And there were certain things in its infancy that weren't so great. But then Google's worked with those schools to gradually improve the product and make the kind of the data available, as Professor Kim was talking about, that readily available kind of great data. That's gradually been improving. I think often with many EdTech companies, you get these sort of entrepreneurs who want to start some amazing business, but don't actually have much educational experience. And there's a lot of buzzwords that are thrown around, like using neuroscience, for example, or they'll talk about, they get just embroiled in various minutiae of their product, like, for example, artificial intelligence, without actually thinking the pedagogical impact their product's going to have. So I think it's really absolutely essential that these companies, if they don't have someone heading the company who has been directly involved in education or a teacher themselves, I think it's really important to have that day-to-day interaction with students and working with students and schools to make sure that their product is really suitable for students. And actually the really important things like getting the assessment right and the feedback to students right, the assessment for learning, etc., making sure that those are the most important aspects of their product rather than the kind of bells and whistles that go around it.
Absolutely, Dr. Frost. You know, we've seen what the beauty and the magic of artificial intelligence has done to our examination results, the use of algorithms and the outcomes of our IB, A-level, GCSE results recently. We've seen that algorithms may not always be fit for purpose. And again, you know, the connection with neuroscientists and so on, you know, having educationalists at the heart of education, I would argue, is a really, really good strategy. Carolina, what do you think in terms of your teaching community that you're working with? What are their feelings about who are the experts who are really directing the technological advancements in education? And what's the role of students here?
Okay, so yes, as it was mentioned before, the teachers being part of producing this digital solution is really, really important, because one of the reasons I believe they are not too fan of technology is that it's not really created thinking about them and how they deliver the class and what is the environment of the classroom or of the school. So it's really, really important that you create a digital tool or a digital learning solution, doing it in a team with teachers that have a good voice on that. So what we really did in Comunidad Athena, we built every code or everything that is in Comunidad Athena. It is built with students. It is a social network with teachers. It is a social network of teachers for teachers. And that is, I think, that is one of the key of our success during this past 5 months, because we really know and understand what they want, because we are with them all the time, and there are lots of teachers in our team that I can swear that we did like hundreds and hundreds of surveys and focus groups, and we are talking to them all the time. So they are really part of what is going on, and they are not like receiving information. They are like part of, and they have an active voice on this. And I dream that Comunidad Athena one day would be, now is the place where the teachers have a voice. And I dream that one day entrepreneurs and organizations could test their educational digital solutions using our voice, the voice of the teachers that would have in Comunidad Athena, and invite them to be part of the pilot and test them and rate it, and okay, how this can work with me and my children and my classroom in my school. So what I really, really believe is that the voice of the teacher is key when you have to think about an education, a tool, a digital tool for the learning process.
I really applaud that, having teachers who are at the front line of teaching, to be at the heart of a teaching community and to navigate and direct that for other community members who are also teachers at a time when life is very, very challenging. I think that's really, really great, the work that you're doing. Really well done, and congratulations to you. In some parts of the world, we just don't have the same access as we do in others. So I know, for example, there are schools in Africa, schools in Bangladesh, who just do not have the gadgets that are required to have any sort of online teaching and learning happening at the moment. So there is really this real question of parity, if you like, and equity of access to online education. So, Professor Kim, how do you understand the digital divide and what can be done about it? In particular, how could places with very little access to these technologies, like South Africa, parts of South Africa, like parts of Bangladesh and India and Pakistan, and also England and the United States, how can these places be brought into the digital world rapidly? And is there a way in which we can afford to do this?
Yeah, I actually do think there is. I mean, I think the one thing that the pandemic has also demonstrated is that having internet access, having actually adequate and fast internet access is a utility in the same way that we think about making sure that the world's population have adequate resources and access to things like water and electricity. And of course, there are still billions of people around the world that don't have access to those very basic essentials. But I think even in very developed nations like the US or in Western Europe and Northern Europe and places like that, I think it's also shown that not everyone has that access. If you can harness the entrepreneurial energy of and ideas and innovation, I think there are some workarounds. Of course, for example, a company that I've been researching and working with is a company called Baiju, which is very well known around the world now. But when they first started, because of the lack of internet access, especially in the rural areas outside of the major cities, this is of course before Geo came on the scene, they used to actually deliver SD cards so that students can access videos on their phone without the type of broadband access. They had a smartphone, they had an SD card, so they would actually literally get a driver, somebody out on a motorcycle, hand them the chip, money would transact, you put that in there, and the only data that would be actually transferred back and forth would be usage data. It wasn't the kind of the rich media, video, audio kinds of things that take up so much bandwidth. And so I think in the short run, there's going to be some workarounds that I think innovative entrepreneurs will come up with. In the long run, I think we have to make a real commitment that if we're going to democratize information and education, that broadband and adequate internet connectivity is something that we need to just provide, much like the way we're focusing on things like water and power.
Absolutely. I really do agree with what you're saying in terms of infrastructure and the importance of infrastructure. It's as important as ensuring that there's a health service in a country, or the provision of water and electricity and gas and so on. I do really agree with that, because gadgets are gadgets, and we can be entrepreneurial and innovative. And I think, again, that's an excellent point. One of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that to be mentally fit and healthy and be able to cope with showing real resilience in the face of a challenge like the pandemic today, creativity is really important. Being innovative is really important. And our teacher community has done wonders with being innovative and creative to look after the children that they are responsible for, whether they've got the technology or not. And I've heard some phenomenal stories of how teachers have been supporting their children through whether it's books or radio or television, if they don't have the internet access in terms of the IT infrastructures in their countries. So it's something that governments also need to look at, I would say. Carolina, what's your experience, if any, about the digital divide?
Everything that we use in our community are free and open digital tools. And we use a lot the cell phone. Teachers use, more than 70% of our teachers follow us on our virtual programs through their cell phone. And sometimes, and I would like to explain what we are like in order to show you what we are doing. What is our digital, or how our engagement about the digital community among Comunidad Athena. For this, we have developed the Athena experience, or Athena Experiencia Athena in Español. That is a 1-week learning journey that brings together teachers across borders and across all Latam. Each week, teachers are invited to join a 5-day learning journey focused on a different theme and based on a method of learning by doing. And all the tools that we use are open, free, and sometimes they don't need connectivity. So they can share their views and the unique insights, creating fresh educational digital content together. We offer a collaborative learning environment for teachers to experience technological tools in a safe environment of trust and without fear of making mistakes, promoting their meaningful and creative use in the classroom. We work a lot with mistakes. We want mistakes to happen, because we believe, and it's okay if you make a mistake, because we believe that you can learn from that mistakes and be better. And if you want to innovate, and if you want to use new tools, and if you want to engage with technology, you have to allow yourself to make mistakes and keep innovating and keep doing things better. Every week in this Athena experience, we have more than 600 teachers going with us. And every week we have one live that is about a certain content. And if they like the content, they keep with us the whole week. We have more than 100,000 views in our YouTube lives about this content. And then we unleash 2 challenges every Tuesday and Thursday. And the challenge is a best practice that is shared in our in Comunidad Athena, and they have to implement it with their students. And by now we have more than 1,700 implementations done, and these implementations reach more than 70,000 children among Latam.
That's amazing, and the Athena community sounds fabulous. It really does. And it's great that you talk about free access and accessibility for everybody who wants to be part of the community. It really, really is fantastic. But when we look, Professor Kim, at digital technology companies, do you think there is a risk of the big digital tech companies controlling the way that education develops? Because they might be giving free access to the resources that they share, but one day these 70,000 or these teachers that are accessing these platforms, they could become clients, they could become potential employees of the companies. How can we ensure that the educational imperatives and values lead innovation and change in this area, and not these companies per se? And is this another area perhaps where commercial market values actually trump educational values?
Well, I suppose the concern about the large tech companies having a tight control over the market it supersedes just the education sector. I mean, I think this is a concern that if you open the newspaper today, that governments around the world are having, whether it's on other types of media or e-commerce and things of that nature. So I think education is a particularly important sector, given the fact that we're dealing with vulnerable children, and it is definitely a sector that's worldwide. So yes, I mean, I think fundamentally there is that danger, but I do think about it, just kind of breaking that down a little bit more. There are really two parts to that question, I think. One is, what is the type of technology that needs to be embedded inside classrooms? So kind of an institutional approach, and who will be able to control that over time? And you know, what is good for kids and good for parents and good for society overall? And then the second part is much more of a consumer approach to, is it really about how are we going to consume at home? It's a more of a consumer market and things of that nature. You know, fundamentally, I subscribe to this idea that content, instructional content, and how learning is created is going to trump everything in terms of the devices or the infrastructure that's there to deliver that information. I think it's pretty clear inside most schools today that there's a lot of Google Chromebooks and Google Suites and things of that nature that's spreading very quickly and is pretty ubiquitous. That being said, they're not in the pedagogical side of the things yet. And I think where there's a real opportunity is for teachers and educators and entrepreneurs to really think about device agnostic, what am I going to do to enhance learning? And in that sense, if you kind of break up the market to infrastructure, delivery mechanisms on the technology side, it's pretty likely that I think large-scale companies will dominate that space. If you then look at the content side, the instructional side of things, I think it's pretty open space. It's pretty wide open right now. And that's where I would really encourage entrepreneurs to be thinking about, which is think of ways in which to really enhance the learning of students and what parents are seeking for their kids globally, and not worry too much about the device delivery mechanism, because I think that's still very much wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And in particular, I have been surrounded by the sort of vision and ethos of disruption in education through technology. That's a word and a phrase I have heard regularly. Let's disrupt, and let's disrupt. But I really agree with what you say. It's about the enhancement of education. It's about the enhancement of the learning experience through technology. And that is a key area that we need to focus on: the pedagogical, the philosophical aspect, the cultural aspect of education and learning is where one needs to look at in terms of innovation, and entrepreneurs need to really focus on in carving out perhaps a new way of doing things. But again, it is the enhancement. It's not about transforming teaching and learning by replacing teaching and learning with technology. And there are so many dangers, as you've just highlighted, in terms of big corporations. But also there is, I think, Dr. Frost, a danger that we sometimes feel about gender issues attached to techno enthusiasm, in particular when it comes to gamification or AI or VI, and it looks at times like boys with toys rather than technology to really enhance teaching and learning. What are your views on that, being from a boys' school yourself?
Well, it's interesting because most of the school is boys only, but in the sixth form we have a mixture of boys and girls now. And it's interesting because in terms of like students using technology, like with its phones or computers and such, I think it is pretty much equal. I don't think boys use technology more than girls. I think there's certain aspects of it where boys might be more interested. So there's not enough uptake in computer science from girls, for example. I did a computer science degree and a computer science PhD, and it was too dominated by males, basically. And that's got to change. And I think that's got to start at schools in terms of making it accessible to everyone and making it appealing to everyone. I think interesting when you say gamification, because on my site students can get points, and even though that there's pretty much equal numbers of male and female users on my site, the leaderboard for points is dominated by boys, and it's interesting you say that, because there is actually evidence for that on my own site. So yeah, it's interesting, because I think on one hand we've got to increase the uptake of girls getting interested in areas like computer science, for example, but also looking how we use existing technology for more kind of wider usage, that we make it as accessible as possible to girls, and sort of think about the impact of gamification and such.
Absolutely, accessible as possible to girls as well as boys. And accessibility is incredibly important. But in terms of also ensuring that there's safety when children want to access technology or access online learning, that's incredibly important. And we have a question from the audience, which I'd like to bring in at this point. How can we teach students, how can we build trust in a virtual environment? Sorry, did you hear that?
Okay,
Charlie,
I can.
please,
Yeah. Okay, I can take
Thank
that.
you.
Well, trust. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're in a virtual place or in a physical place, trust is transversal of everything, and you have to do whatever you do to develop trust in the physical world. You have to do the same in the virtual world. And I'll give you an example. We have a program that we call it biceps, as the muscle biceps, because we really believe in leadership based on trust. And an expert came up with this bicep idea that every letter it's an idea, it's a concept, it is a value, and you have to practice every day your biceps. And I will explain you really short what is every letter. The B is for benevolence. You have to be benevolent with the person who is in front of you. You have to have good interest, be genuine with the other person. The I is for integrity, do what you say and say what you do. The C is for competencies. You have to be good with technical, you have to be good at what you're doing. If you're a math teacher, you have to know math to be fair to be a math teacher. And then we have the E, that is excellence. You have to be all the time looking for excellence, and don't stop there. Keep looking for excellence. Then you have the P for presence. You have to be present. If you are a leader in a team, or if you are a teacher leading students, you have to be there for them. You have to be a person who is there. You have to be present. And present is not always physical. You can be present with a phone call. You can be present with a message, with a text message in your phone. And also there is this yes, that is the most important letter for me, that is service. So you are at a service. When you are a leader, you are at the service of what you're doing and or the people that is around you, and every decision that you make will make an impact on the others. And if you are in a leadership role, you have to know and to always have the idea in mind that you are at a service for the community, for the school, for the students. So I think that to answer the question, how you build trust in a virtual world or physical world, you have to exercise your biceps, your muscle biceps every day, with little things and with big things as well.
Thank you, Carolina. Absolutely. And I think that I really like that analogy of the biceps. And I think that, as you said, leadership has a role to play here as well. And in my experience of being a principal, one of the things that I have done to be able to build trust and protect children from harm and teachers from harm online is really to really address all the processes, all the policies, all the systems that we have in the physical world as being the same in the virtual world. It is about that sort of real genuine vision and philosophy that we have in the school being transferred online. So all the sort of protocols you would have in terms of child protection, safeguarding, reporting structures and so on would become live online as they would in the physical arena. And educationalists, leaders, teachers, principals have such a powerful vision of how technology could change the world and change the world of lots and lots of children, that we can't sort of worry about the harm, the aspect of harm, and not allow the children to access the beautiful world that exists online. Professor Kim, Steve Jobs had a really powerful vision for how technology could really change the world, and in particular, how it could change the marketplace. Even though he wasn't himself a programmer or an engineer or a teacher, he believed that technology could help us to dream better and to see the world differently. Do you think that that dream and that vision is relevant to education?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think I'm not quite, it's hard to know, to get into the mind of a genius like Steve Jobs to know exactly what he was thinking about, but here's kind of how I distill that vision. We should really be thinking about empowering individuals. And technology is just one way for us to do that. It's an important way. It's a scalable way. In many ways, the technology can put into a child's hands or an adult's hands so much information, access to information. So it democratizes information. It allows us to personalize, customize the things that we want to explore. And I think we should never forget that what technology is there for is in service of our dreams and our aspirations. I think in my research around technology use in the education sector, there are plenty of examples of what I just spoke about. But there's also plenty of examples of schools and individuals purchasing and utilizing technology for technology's sake. I'm one of those people that truly believe in the power of technology to help students, schools, and learning. Yet at the same time, I always think if you don't need it at all, don't use it. So for example, in my Harvard Business School classroom, before the pandemic, now of course we're using a lot of technology as a way to help address the issues around the virus. But before then, we never used technology. It was the classroom itself was incredibly technologically advanced with lots of cameras and things like that. But really the teaching tools were the blackboard, the chalk, and discussion. So much can happen. And of course, the technology is the chalk, the blackboard, and the paper, which is still a good technology in service of Socratic thinking, of deep analysis, and of learning. But so I think, I definitely believe in the dream. I think we have to make sure that the technology is there in service of our dream.
Absolutely. In terms of using technology for the sake of technology is never a good idea, as you point out. Using it when it's needed, when it's really going to have the impact on the child, is the best strategy. I couldn't agree more. I'm a technologist. I'm a techno enthusiast. I use technology in my teaching and learning. I always have, but I've only ever used it where it's going to enhance and help children better understand what they are learning and the learning objectives, and achieve the learning objectives of the lesson or the topic that they are studying. It's really, really important. It's just like a pen and a piece of paper or a textbook or the blackboard or the whiteboard. You're absolutely right. And as you say, Steve Jobs was an absolute genius, and who could predict what he was thinking about? But one thing he did get right, it was that there was power in technology, and it was going to help us achieve amazing things. You know, we have come to the end of this discussion panel, so I would like you all, and I'll start with Carolina, please, in one word, how can you sum up how we can make this better in one word, please?
Okay. All around the world, technology is introduced, but those who hold the key are disempowered to use it effectively. If we can inspire teachers, create community, and bring them on a digital journey based on trust, we will unlock the potential of technology in education.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina. So trust, you know, really, really trusting the key holders who of course are our teachers. Dr. Frost?
Sorry, I was muted there. If I was allowed one word, I'd probably say discernment, because there's such a plurality of technologies available, and it's discerning which ones are going to be most effective from, I think Professor Kim distinguished between technology for content, so pedagogical content, and those for sort of the kind of classroom environment, managing classroom resources, etc. So it's just really getting the right technologies in use and discerning which ones are the best, and which ones are the most accessible financially as well.
Yes, yes, very true. In terms of, are we using, what's the purpose of the technology, as Professor Kim said earlier? Is it for efficiency, or is it for actual pedagogical enhancement and achievement? Professor Kim?
Yeah, I think if it's one word, I'd sum it up as empowerment. You know, this whole idea of, can EdTech rise to the challenge of COVID-19? This is yet another incredible challenge that's faced, in fact, the entire world. It's a global pandemic. And what we really need to do is empower people through technology in order to address this challenge and many other important challenges, I think, that would face us today. So, empowerment, and thank you so much for having me on this panel.
You're most welcome. It's been my pleasure to listen to all three of you, and I couldn't have put it better myself in terms of empowerment, and I knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling. Carolina, Dr. Frost, and Professor Kim, thank you so much. We've heard from you today, and we've heard there's so much to consider, and there's so much to think about, and really think hard about when it comes to technology and education, in particular during a global pandemic, as we're witnessing today. The World Economic Forum has dubbed the rise of digital technologies as the fourth industrial revolution. It's a constantly changing, innovating, and growing ecosystem that isn't going away, not anytime soon. Education is not an island, and so everyone involved in education needs to be ready to adapt. What's so exciting about this technology is that we don't know what new innovation is lying just around the corner. And we often can't guess at first how an existing technology can be repurposed to solve a problem we might have. We're all concerned with ensuring that all students are equipped to meet the challenges of this new and exciting world we're living in, so that the new leaders coming out of our schools and colleges are able to rethink what needs to be done and bring about change for all. I suggest schools continue to be tech aware and keep in touch with developments so that they can make informed judgments about what they do next. Work to erase the digital divide, so important to erase the digital divide in their school, including gender, class, age divides, and be pandemic ready so you can continue in case of more enforced closures. Remember that technology enhances, as we've heard from our panel, good teaching, but can't make up for poor teaching, as Carolina put so eloquently earlier. So ensure all teachers are well-trained, experts in whatever they're teaching, and identify digital champions in a staff to help build institutional expertise. We should be open to learn about technologies from students, be strict about issues around privacy and about privacy, sharing data, child protection issues, and we should always be safe. Don't let technology systems become more important than their users, as Professor Kim said earlier. Staff and students are at the heart of education. Our message to our global teacher fraternity is be relentless in the pursuit of great teaching and learning. Work to build a culture that is comfortable with using a technology where needed and comfortable not using it when it isn't, as Professor Kim mentioned earlier. Remain agile and ambidextrous in your approach to innovation, including technology innovation. integration, have clear strategies for tech use in your schools as part of your school development or action plans. So everything is safe, manageable, realistic, affordable, and sustainable. Never, ever forget the student comes first. Never put anything between you and your ability to give them a great learning experience. This has been Talking Education with the Varkey Foundation, and we very much look forward to seeing you at the next discussion. Take care. God bless.